Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. On today's review, we take a look at the Storm Collectible Mortal Kombat 3 Sub-Zero Bluefin / Big Bad Toy Store exclusive. Today I'll be reviewing this figure in the following categories: accessories, articulation, design, is it essential to your collection, functionality, and price. Once all scores are totaled, I'll give you my opinion if this figure is a pass or a purchase. So I've been waiting to add this to my collection since I've seen this maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I was assuming that this would be a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. It was not. It actually went on sale September the 14th at Bluefin's virtual event. If you are looking to get this figure, it is currently sold out at Bluefin as well as Big Bad Toy Store. So for accessories, at first glance and package, it didn't look like Sub-Zero came with that much. However, taking it out of package, it really seems like he comes with a lot. So let's start with the bulk of his accessories, which would be his effect pieces. So you receive 2, let's just call them puddle effect pieces. Both done particularly nice. I really like the cracking that's shown here and the flare of the ice spiking up. The surface in the bottom is flat so that you can lay this down. And then this one is more crystallized. I hope it's coming across on camera. Out of those two, this would probably be my favorite of the 2 effect pieces, as the crystal really makes it look more like ice. And I won't go into each of these pieces as there are about 8 or 9 in total. But these are plug-in pieces. We'll get more to these specific accessories when we get to the functionality department, so don't worry about that at the moment. Continuing on, the hands are done in a translucent blue and clear plastic, and it looks great. Really good job here, making the hands look like ice. Really like this. And we receive 4 pair of hands in total. Moving on to a smaller effect piece. If I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to, I guess, come out of his hands as opposed to being laid flat on the floor, but we'll find out a little bit later if I'm actually correct about that. And let's just move on to the skull, which we have seen before. It was painted red, I know, with the very first release of Sub-Zero, excuse me. But this is done in that same translucent blue and white, and it does look good. And moving on to perhaps my favorite pieces, you get the blood effect piece. Really like when they include this, but this accessory right here, this is where it is. This mimics his fatality, and man, am I just happy with this piece right here. In the blood, the eyes popping out, and Storm Collectibles, they didn't cheat us. Like, the eyes are painted exceptionally well. You could actually see the pupils inside, and you can see blood around the eyes itself. Man, I'm really digging this. And Sub-Zero only comes with the 1 head sculpt that he has on. Very surprised with that. So for accessories, I'm going to give Sub-Zero an 8 out of 10, mainly because of 2 reasons. The very first, we only received 1 head sculpt. The other is Storm missed an opportunity to either give us a fully translucent pair of arms or a fully painted pair of arms, and we'll talk about that a little later. So for articulation, let's take a look at Sub-Zero. I'm going to remove this piece as it just easily falls off. The head is barely able to look up any. I remember this quite well as I reviewed Scorpion. You do get full rotation, get a good amount of pivot, and the head does move back and forth. So with the arm, it's able to come up about that much before popping off. If you choose to, it's able to rotate a full 360. You do have an upper bicep cut here. The elbows are double jointed, bending in about that much. The hands are on a ball peg. You're able to get them to rotate, and if you get the right angle, should go side to side. So the arm also has a butterfly joint, bending forward that much and backwards about that much. With the torso, you have an A and B portion. Just using the upper part, you're able to get him to crunch only that much. Back a little bit more. Using the combination of the 2, he's able to bend forward about that much, which is good. Back that much, and you do get some pivot. It is very restricted by this material, and due to the material as well, you're barely able to get any rotation even though it is there. The arms are able to kick, the legs are able to kick out to the side that much, forward that much, which is not enough in my opinion for a ninja-based character. It's able to kick way back. You do have rotation. No cut at the lower part of the leg. The knees are double jointed, bending in about that much. The foot is able to go forward, barely any. It's barely any. Back a good amount. Here we go with these ankles. And the terrible ankles. Inside, outside, you do have a bend in the toe. So yeah, it is the same as Scorpion, which is no surprise. So for articulation, there are some challenges, especially for a ninja-based character. The head doesn't give you enough movement, so I will be deducting points there. There's not enough movement in the torso, I'll be deducting points there. Also, you have that angling foot issue around the ankles, I'll be deducting points there as well. So for overall articulation, it is a bit disappointing. I'm going to give Sub-Zero a 6 out of 10. So for design, the figure looks good. Let's start with a quick look at the head. The eyes are done in a grayish color, which looks very good. The eyebrows are painted very well. You don't see any of the brown mixing in with the flesh tone or any color from the eyes seeking out, so that's very good. So with his overall blue color, all the lines and scope work is in place. The black is not bleeding onto the blue, as well as vice versa. And that continues just all the way down. Now, on the black parts, you see most parts are matted, but every now and then you do get a bit shimmer or shiny part. Not sure what that's about. No shortcuts in the back. Back is painted well. And having the joints painted the same color as the figure truly does a service for the figure. So now to where I have a few challenges, and I feel Stormcollectibles missed the mark a little bit here. So just focusing on the transparent parts. The hands, in my opinion, looks exceptional. That very clear bluish color. But now when you get up to the arms, I am very happy with this part. I think they also did a good job making the joints that same color. Now, to where it gets messy is the part to where the translucent is now turning into flesh tone. So it goes from a blue to a green to flesh tone. And it's a few things that Stormcollectible could have done to make this better. First of all, they could have given us a completely translucent arm, and I think they should have done that. Also, around this area to where the colors are blending, they should have gave this a frost look. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So here's another version of Sub-Zero from McFarlane. Don't worry, I'll show better images of this guy a little bit later. But what I just want you to see is the frost to how this is painted. There's no reason that Stormcollectible couldn't have done the same thing. Just putting that frost along this part, it would have looked a lot better. So for overall design, I'm going to give Sub-Zero an 8 out of 10. So is Sub-Zero essential to your collection? There is no question that he is absolutely an essential character to Mortal Kombat. However, let's keep in mind that we have a few versions of Sub-Zero from Stormcollectibles, excuse me. So we have the very first version for Mortal Kombat 1 that came out a few years ago. We have the one that came out just before this figure that has the fully painted arms. And now we have this one. So with Stormcollectibles alone, you have 3 versions of Sub-Zero. That has to knock down the essential aspect of this one just a little bit. Also, you have McFarlane, who has introduced 2 Sub-Zero figures. Yes, I know they are based on a different version of the game than this one and the one prior. However, nonetheless, it is still Mortal Kombat, and those 2 figures are very close in scale. And in addition to that, there's another version of Sub-Zero that is about to release probably some point early next year, which is the unmasked version. So now we will have 4 versions of Sub-Zero for the Stormcollectibles line. However, I won't count the one that's coming as it's not here yet. So as far as being essential to your collection, I'm going to give this version of Sub-Zero a 7 out of 10. So for functionality, I think this is going to be the longest part of the video. Just starting with the head for a moment, I had the same challenge with Scorpion, this piece falls off way too easily. Really not sure to why it's even a separate piece. So this is something that I'm going to glue in time. Moving on to the chest region, this material should have been a lot softer so that it wouldn't restrict movement as much as it does. So now let's move to the hands so that we can exchange them. The hands are usually easy to go on. For whatever reason, I struggle sometimes on camera. So there go the hands. So with the gripping hands now placed on him, let's see how he holds this part. The hands are extremely soft, even though this piece is a bit large. Going to go off camera for a moment. So getting that skull in hand is not as easy as I would have liked it to be. What I ended up doing, put him down for a minute, was essentially separating it, pushing this part through his hands and then popping the head back off. The issue here is that most of this is too big to fit in the hands, and the hands are extremely soft. So I do want to remove this hand. I do want to place this hand on. And we'll come back to that. I want to move on to the blood accessory, which, if I'm not mistaken, goes on his foot. Similar to this. I think once you have a figure that he can sort of, something similar to this. No instructions, so I'm not 100% sure. And it certainly does not stay on his foot. I'm going to try a few things here. Okay, perhaps this is the better way as it stays that way. Yeah, I'm assuming this is how it goes. And that looks good. I'll see if I can get it in a better pose and perhaps take a few pictures. But I would have liked for, like, it could have been so simple. A hole in a foot and a peg, and then it just would have stayed on. Like, that would have been very simple and easy to do, but they didn't. And now bringing the McFarlane's version of Sub-Zero into play. This figure does not stand particularly well. Feet are very small. So I may end up holding this the entire time. So initially I just bought this to be a ice clone. Just want to give you an idea of how they look side by side. And I'm going to try to use this effect piece. So just give me a moment, as I can't do it on camera because neither, well, let's talk about that. Neither figure stands particularly well. This one you can get him to stand, but it's not the easiest. This one here, having a very hard time getting him to stand on his own. So I ended up not being able to show the picture that I wanted. So this just gives you an idea of how it looks. So what I found out is that this part is actually detachable from the fingers, which is such a non-smart thing to do. As now it's separated from the fingers, I'm having a very hard time placing it back in place. And I'm really not sure what side it goes on. So this was just something that should have came glued in place. Okay, so now let's get to the effect pieces. As you see, there are actually four places to where you can peg these in. So I'll just take a combination of sizes just to give you an idea of how it works. So let's see if this one plugs in here. I have not tried to plug it in prior to this video, so I'm finding out myself. And what I'm essentially looking for is to make sure that it has some sort of peg system to go in place. That doesn't fit particularly well, neither does it here. There's a smaller hole just about here, which I'm going to try to plug it into. That doesn't fit particularly well. Okay, so maybe this is made primarily for the longer pieces. I think that one fits better there. I'm going to go to one of the longer pieces that dropped and try to peg this. No, that doesn't want to go in that hold. Gonna try this again. Nope. All right. Okay, so it's certainly based off of size. So you'll have to look at each piece and figure out which one goes into which hole. I think I finally have that figured out. There's a smaller piece here. I'm assuming this one goes there. Okay, there we go. And now with this, it appears that you can use these to plug, maybe not that one. We just back the camera up just a little bit. So it appears that these pieces do not go here. I think I have it figured out. There's a smaller piece here, and I think the pieces peg onto this. Yeah, it does. I can see it right there. So there are a few holes. Let's try a larger size. That doesn't stay particularly well in place, so maybe I'll just stick with the smaller ones. And I may need to go off. Nah, that's good. Okay, so as I thought, this is going to be a challenge. So with this particular piece here, it doesn't just port around his hand. What should have been done, one of two things. Either a hand should have already been attached to this with a peg sticking outward so that you can place it here, or it should have been a hole inside so that you can just push it through the hand. There's neither. So now you have to get a gripping hand, which is currently on him, have him hold this, I need to change this hand out. So I went for more of an open hand, so maybe he can just hold it there and with the other part grip around it. I'm going to try to do that off camera. Problematic. So you can have Sub-Zero sort of shooting ice out of this part, and perhaps there's a way to get this to look a little bit better. Or you can remove these pieces, which I'm going to elect to do, and you can use this to plug in. So that's how that looks assembled, and then you come in with Sub-Zero. I'm just so aggravated. I just want to get this part over. Something very similar to that. So let's just get all of this stuff out of the way. Just put him back up here. And if you're wondering why his mask isn't on, because it keeps falling off. So there are some issues with functionality. One, starting with his mask. Two, starting with the material being too restrictive. And the effect pieces are simply a nightmare to use. Most should have come glued. There either should have been a stand incorporated or a better system for him to plug his hand in. There are just so many challenges with all of the effect pieces. So for functionality, this is maybe the most aggravated that I've been with an action figure in quite some time. I'm going to give Sub-Zero a 4 out of 10. So before we dive into pricing, I just want to show you some of the other pieces that comes with the McFarlane figure. You have 2 axes such as this, so you're able to easily plug them into his hand, and now Sub-Zero has additional weapons. If you're wondering, he also comes with a skull, very similar to the one Sub-Zero has. However, this one is easier to fit in his hand. So for pricing, this figure comes in at $69.99. That is before taxes, that is before shipping. Add in the both, you're looking about $85 or so for this figure. So is he worth the price of admission? So Sub-Zero comes with some cool accessories, especially in the effects department, to where I feel Stormcollectibles missed out was essentially giving us another version of the head, or either 2 translucent full arms or 2 fully painted arms, which we didn't get. The drawback for the accessories that we receive, they are a complete nightmare to use. So that takes away the fun ability of using them. I don't even want to be bothered with those accessories. I'm going to put them in a box and I'm going to be done, or I'm going to decide to glue them in place and just leave them as a diorama piece. So this figure just has some challenges. The articulation is not where it should be, as the same was with the Scorpion, so I'm not surprised at all that it's the same with this figure. Currently, the Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero, the first version that came up, It's sold out everywhere, so it has seen an increase in price. So if you haven't gotten that one, then this was a cheaper alternative as it is no longer available. And I feel pretty confident that this one is probably higher in price than the one before. So for pricing, I gotta give this one a 7 out of 10. So that should give Sub-Zero an overall cliff score of 40 out of 60. So now, is he a pass or a purchase? That really depends. If you have the first release version, then this is absolutely a pass, and that's what I'm going to stick with. This figure is a pass. So here is Sub-Zero by his lonesome. Here he is standing side by side with the McFarlane Mortal Kombat 10 version of Sub-Zero, and I'm holding him because he won't stand on his own. Here he is next to the Mortal Kombat Raiden, which I was planning on reviewing immediately after this, but I'm so frustrated that that's going to have to wait for another day. Here he is next to Marvel Legends Iceman. I plan on taking some cool photos. I plan on making some more comparisons, but I'm just over this video. Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. I hope to see you during the next review.